Hi, everyone. Welcome to our second OMSCS career seminar of the semester. I'm Brittany Aiello, and I manage communications for the OMSCS program. And we're so glad that you're here to talk about startups and maybe learn something new and share your insight. So, for those who are new and haven't participated in a seminar before, the idea for this series comes from the belief that online students at Georgia Tech can and should have accessible, affordable, top tier educational experiences. So we see career resources like this as a way that we can help the students and prospective students in our community succeed. Tonight, we'll hear from two members of the OMSCS community, one current student and one graduate of the program, who are also the CTO and data scientist for a machine learning and data science focused startup, Palo Alto Insight. But first, since most of you are probably new to the Shindig platform, we're going to show a short clip telling you about the features and ways that you can interact with us during the seminar via the platform. So our lovely friend Tara from Shindig is going to cue that up here in just a second.
Welcome to Shindig, the video chat event provider. Click on any participant's image to engage in a private video chat. Double-click on another participant to add them to your existing conversation. Click the arrow to exit. You can also send an instant message, either to an individual or to your entire room. Want to interact with the host? Use the buttons on the lower right. Click Raise Hand to signal to the event administrator that you want to be brought on stage. Otherwise, submit a question to the host via text. If the system has not automatically detected your webcam and microphone, roll over your image and click Settings. Click your image to enable your working webcam. Choose a working microphone by selecting the option with volume indicators that flash green in response to your voice. We hope this was helpful. Enjoy the event.
All right, so that was just a little bit about Shindig. And we want this to be conversational and interactive, like I said. So as I talk to our guests tonight, if you have questions, feel free to ask them via the text chat or raise your hand. And even if you are bold enough and want to join us on stage, some students like to ask, face to face. And so we also welcome that. So to share a little bit about our guests. So Taka is the CTO of Palo Alto Insight and helped to found the company after he earned his MBA at Harvard Business School, and then worked as a data scientist for Siri at Apple. And he is currently enrolled in the OMSCS program, and I think he said has two courses left or 2 semesters left. So he's almost finished with the program. And Tsuji has spent his career working as an engineer, financial analyst, and marketing manager. He just finished his degree with the OMSCS program this past year, and he stepped into the role of data scientist for Palo Alto Insight. And this is actually one of the most OMSCS seminars we've had yet, because just like our students are all over the world, our two guests are on 2 different continents at this moment, conferencing in. So Taka is based in the States, and Tsuji is actually in Tokyo right now. And it's very early in the morning, so we're lucky to be able to find a time to have them both. So I'll welcome them both up on the stage now, and we can get started. Hi, Taka.
Hi, Brittany.
Thanks for joining us. We'll just wait for a second and see if we can get Tsuji up on the stage.
Hi, Brittany.
Hi, how you doing?
I guess
All
the
right.
distance.
Looks like we might have a little bit of a delay. Let's let it catch up for a second. There we go. Now I can see everyone. So thanks again for joining us and talking about your company and your experiences and the startup world and all of that good stuff. To kind of get going, I would love it if you could share with the audience, each take a moment to share your background a little bit more than what I already shared and what you're currently doing with your career.
Sure. I guess I'll go first. Thanks for the introduction, Brittany, and thanks again for having me. So my name is Taka Hasegawa. I am the CTO and co-founder of Palo Alto Insight. And my co-founder and I launched this company middle of last year, so June of 2017. And like Brittany said, we are a machine learning and data science focused consulting company. And so a little bit of background about me. Before I started this company, I worked at Apple as a data scientist for 5 years after graduating from Harvard Business School. So yeah, that's in a nutshell. I started the OMSCS program during the time that I was at Apple. I think it's fall of 2016, and so it's been a great experience. Just being able to be enrolled in the program during kind of multiple stages in my life, working at a big company, starting a startup, having kids and things like that. So that flexibility is definitely great, and so kind of. Thanks to OMSCS, and so that's my background in a nutshell.
Awesome, thank you. Tsuji, you want to share a little bit?
Sure. Good evening there. Good morning here. My name is Tomonori Sooji, and I'm based in Japan. And actually, I took the whole OMSC's program, living in Japan and working as a marketing department in some international logistic company, and then wanted to change my own career. So been preparing for that through the school. And then through the OMSC program, I met with Taka in one of the machine learning class. It was a reinforcement learning classes. And then we became really good friends. And then we actually got to meet one time through the program in Japan. And then it's kind of, this is how it started. He's starting a new business, and I'm looking for a new career change, etc. We talk more about detail later, but that's how it started. And unlike many students joining in the OMSCS, I'm coming from a non-tech background. So for some of the people who are going through the same path, I can share more story with you guys. So hope to enjoy the session. Thank you.
That's great. I think it's very interesting that, first of all, you met through the program. I think that, a lot of our students, one of the things they say is the greatest strength of the program for them is the community and the networking opportunities and the people that they've met in different companies and different types of work all over the world. So I love that story. And also that you've only ever met in person the one time and you work together. I love that. That's absolutely fascinating. So, kind of a question off of that, Taka, specifically for you. When you were starting the company, was the original idea to have an office in the U.S. and an office in Japan, or how did that come about?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I think initially, a lot of our clients are in Japan, so that's why we were. My co-founder and I were kind of traveling to Japan a lot, meeting up with clients, and developing that network. And so once kind of the project started running, we realized that we really need somebody, on the ground. I think the tools have been kind of progressing so rapidly around, being able to do work remotely. So things like Slack or video conferencing. We use Zoom, project management tools, all that stuff. I think has been progressing so rapidly, and enabling us to be able to work in all different locations of the world, regardless of location. So that was a big enabler. But at the end of the day, there's nothing like face-to-face contact and communication. So I was, like Tsuji said, we were taking reinforcement learning together during the spring of last year. And so during that time, I was still actually working at Apple, I think. No, it was during the summer. So it was actually right around the transition from my jumping from big company to startup life. But yeah, so during that time, I was talking with him. We were talking about class and talking about reinforcement learning. And we kind of came to a mutual agreement that there might be a benefit for Tomonori to do some projects in Japan, kind of on an ad hoc project basis, and then we will kind of have our headquarters still in California, we have a network of engineers that we kind of tap into over here. A lot of my ex-colleagues from Apple and my co-founders from Google. So she has a lot of contacts there as well. So we try to kind of suck up like the best practices and learn from our past experiences and deploy that knowledge into real world situations and try to create value out of the things that we learned essentially from OMSCS. So it's kind of to answer your question, a little bit by design, but a little bit by accident. But yeah, I think definitely, OMSCS has been a big enabler for me to kind of network with different people in different countries and find good friends and talk about cutting edge machine learning techniques.
That's wonderful. And so I guess my next question that kind of comes from that is, and I can ask Tsuji first, and then I'll ask you, Taka, but this career change that has happened for both of you. Tsuji, you said you were working in marketing before, and you did the OMSCS program to help with the career change. What prompted that? Why were you interested in computer science specifically, and kind of how did you end up getting a degree from Georgia Tech and making such a big shift?
Right. It's actually, actually, today in the marketing field, it's actually quite a lot of machine learning technique being used. So I was in the marketing department, but it's more on the customer side, dealing with all those IT company to do the branch, the campaign and all that stuff. So, and since my undergrad background is actually not related to marketing, more from math, so I was always interested in that science field. So then I see, those company doing something really cool about machine learning, and then start getting into more interesting in it. And I'm like, well, I really want to learn about this and how it works. And so it was just about that. And I've been in the same company for more than 10 years, and then I was wanting to do challenge myself or something new. And then but then one of the challenge was that I still have to make some kind of money to get my living going. So I was looking for some new program as well, and then searching for internet, and there are some many online classes nowadays. Comparing with the 10 years ago, it has been a major changes in this field as well. And then I found this OMSC program fits my needs the best. So that's how I started the program, and it's been a really great experience.
That's wonderful. Yeah, it's amazing how many people come from different backgrounds, and something about this program, it just fits perfectly for them. And so Taka, you were working for Apple. You wanted to get into the startup space. Was that always the case? Was that always kind of your aspiration to start your own company? And kind of how did OMSCS give you that edge that you felt like you needed to kind of take that leap at the same time?
Definitely. I think, for my career aspirations, I always wanted to kind of build my own company. So that was one of the reasons I attended Harvard Business School. But after graduating, I felt like, there's kind of one of two ways that you can go. You can go kind of the VC route and, start raising money, build a nice pitch deck, and, try to raise some investor money to kind of get your beta users and launch that way. Or you can kind of bootstrap and try to build out a product by yourself. And I really kind of wanted to go the bootstrap way without involving too many investors upfront. So I felt like if I really wanted to do that, one skill that I really need to master is how to build a product, or how to consult with clients and deliver value with my own skills. So that was part of the reason why I first kind of started as kind of sort of training on the job at Apple. and learning the best practices and learning how my colleagues thought about these different kinds of problems. And so it was a great experience there. But what I was finding was that I kind of had a unique background. Most of my colleagues were PhDs in computer science, or they had kind of a solid foundation. And I was kind of winging it as I went along. And I really wanted to get a more solid and fundamental understanding around these concepts. And OMSCS has been a really, really great help in terms of that area. I think, even in big companies, there's such a drive towards trying to just implement the most cutting edge idea. So at my time at Apple, that was like deep learning, so I was working in Siri and speech recognition and natural language processing and things like that. So people were experimenting with like LSTMs, deep learning, and there was kind of a race to just get that done without really kind of a solid understanding of how those things really worked. And so I was always kind of curious and wanted to learn more and about these ideas and how to think about machine learning. And so that was my motivation for starting in OMSCS. And I think it's been really, really enlightening in terms of learning these kind of basic fundamental principles. So just as an example, I think machine learning is one of the core classes if you're specializing in machine learning. But the way that class is structured around the projects, and you have to write reports around the different machine learning classifiers that you don't necessarily implement them. You can steal them off the internet, but understanding the fundamentals of those classifiers and being able to explain why those things work and when those things break down is a huge boost, both in my big company experience, because you'll often have to be kind of explaining your decisions to your colleagues or your bosses of, why are you doing things this way? But also in my startup experience of, trying to deliver value to these clients, just understanding all these different tools and being able to say, okay, if you have this kind of a problem, let's try reinforcement learning, because that is a decision-making problem at its core. So those kinds of areas have been really, really helpful in learning for me. So it's been a boost both to my kind of big company career and also the transition into the startup world.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tsuji, with you kind of moving into a new role as you wanted to when you got into the program, what do you feel like has benefited you from your courses and what you learned in OMSCS the most in your new role, and what other students could kind of focus and hone in on that would help them if they're doing the same thing, if they're trying to move into a new role like you were?
Oh, you mean the career transition from one role to a total? Well, it's actually, this is one of the things I want to highlight. Maybe some of the participants want to go for a completely new field. But one of my advice is don't throw away your past or learning. Is even I'm in a total different industry and a total different role, I'm using my old what I learned from the past experience in learning. But I'm adding the additional value of my new knowledge in the machine learning and the data science, because what we do is some of the work we do is business analytics side, that we have to convince our client to implement the machine learning algorithm. Then you have to run the business. You have to understand the business of the customers. And I was working as a business analyst before, so from that background, I was able to use and work with the Japanese client about what kind of business value that machine learning will bring to the client. And on top of that, I have a new knowledge from learning the machine learning in OMSCS, so I can talk about what algorithm we can implement. And like Taka said, why it works. That's a really important concept to explain to our client, because not like IT company, we deal with some of the small medium company in Japan as well that they want to implement the machine learning, but they don't have a deep knowledge about. They don't. Some people don't even know what deep learning is. So you have to break it down by pieces and how it works. Why it works. What's the pros and cons for each other. So things like that. So I'm using. I guess I took it as. I don't really take this as a career change exactly. More of the development. And then just happened to be I'm going to a new role. So, and then thanks to Taka, yeah, he's giving me the new opportunity to make things easy.
Yeah, and
so
really...
I just wanted to interject. There's a thing called the job search trilemma. They taught me this at HBS. It's so there's 3 things that you look for in a job. So one is location. The other is industry, and the third thing is role. And I think they said that at most you should definitely try not to change all 3 at once. But if you keep one, and you can change the other 2, so you can stay in one location and try to change your role in industry, or you can keep your role and try to change location in industry and things like that. So I definitely I think learning from your past and utilizing your experiences, that's a great thing to do.
Yeah, and I think that's super valuable, especially in the context of the OMSCS program, because you're also in a group of people that is just more diverse in background and experience than you probably ever will at any other point in your life be involved with. And so you can also learn from those past experiences of your community that you have in the program, learn from people in other industries that you might want to get into before you make that leap. It can be just really a really valuable resource. So I want to talk a little bit now, and just remind the audience before we keep going, feel free to ask questions. We are happy to just chit chat up here, but if you do have questions, we would love to answer those as well. So talking specifically about the startup world and what that's like, there are probably some students in our more than 6,000 that are interested in taking that leap. And so I was wondering if y'all could just talk a little bit about the difficulties of that, the best parts of that, and maybe some tips you might have for people who are interested in maybe either starting their own company or looking for work with a startup.
Yeah, so I think I can speak to kind of our kind of startup, which is more focused towards consulting and project-based work. For us, I think my co-founder and I we both we were actually classmates at Harvard Business School, and she kind of went on to Google, and I went to Apple after graduating. But we were all kind of always talking about we want to try our own thing sometime soon. So we were definitely kind of preparing a lot about a year before, or even like 2 years before starting this company. Trying to build up a solid client list, trying to think about longer term strategy and things like that. So if you're thinking about this kind of work, and I feel the work is very fulfilling because you get to interact with so many different types of clients, and there's a lot of companies and a lot of people out there, and they're all facing different kinds of challenges. And the things that we're learning in this program are kind of directly applicable to a lot of these problems, and it's very kind of creative work to think about these problems and try to match these technologies to those problems. And that's a very kind of rewarding side of this work. The other perk is, it's we can kind of have our own freedom to structure the work whichever way we want. So that's another great thing about this kind of startup. The challenges I would say is, you're going to become a business owner. So you're always going to have to be thinking about things like, how to market well, how to build up your audience, do the accounting, the paperwork, all those kind of stuff. At the end of the day, I really enjoy those aspects as well, actually. So, just looking at MailChimp and looking at how my email campaign is doing and things like that also is kind of a really fun aspect of my job. But you have to, I think, be a generalist in that sense of, you can't just be kind of focused on the technology or just this one product. There's multiple facets of the company that you have to be looking at. And so that's one thing that I learned jumping from a big company to startup world. Yeah.
That's great advice. And Tsuji, did you have anything to add about your experience working for a startup?
Maybe I'll add a few points from the aspect of working for a startup company. Before I used to work for the logistics company FedEx, and it's as you guys may know, it's a big company. So the thing about this is, if you work in a big company, sometimes your project is big in scope, but you have a small control because you work with the multinational company or the big company that the responsibility area you have might be in a certain area. But if you work in a startup company, the scope is more specific, but your role and responsibility is a large challenge because you have to do everything by yourself. I mean, the example, I'm here in Japan alone, dealing with the clients, and then I have to develop the business and also justify the case. After that, you develop the actual coding and then implement it and then monitor it. So pretty much end-to-end process that you have to do, which I enjoy it very much because you have a feeling of the hands-on of the project. And once you deliver the result and make clients happy, that's actually really, really rewarding. I didn't really expect until I started up this job, but it's a pretty big changes and very interesting things to work for a startup. Yeah. And flexibility is one of the key. Yeah, you can't really expect so much fixed format. So whatever goes along, you do with that.
Wonderful. So we have a question from the audience. So Dante wants to ask a question. I think he's going to come up on stage with us so that he can ask it himself.
Hi, Dante.
Hi, Taka. Hi, Tsuji. Konnichiwa. Hello.
Konnichiwa.
Can you, hi, Brittany. Can you describe, assuming it doesn't breach any confidential information for your company, can you describe a little bit of your long-term strategy and how you are differentiating yourselves in what is ostensibly a pretty competitive market in Silicon Valley? And I got a second part to the question. What types of markets are you hoping to penetrate? For example, biomedicine and areas like that. And thanks for taking my question.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Dante. It's a hard question right now. Honestly, we have so many projects in the pipeline right now that we're falling into the trap of just looking at the short term, just trying to manage these projects and get to a successful state of business. But my co-founder and I, we actually just started. We've been talking about the long-term strategy a lot, and I think we're trying to kind of pivot into a more product-oriented company based on the things that we're learning from the project work that we're doing right now. And so we've been experimenting with different things like training material to the clients and things like that. But yeah, we're very much thinking, 5 years from now, what kind of things should we be doing? And in terms of the sectors, right now, the projects that we're seeing right now, a lot of it, it's very diverse, the industries. So we have like manufacturing, finance. We have projects in more kind of the healthcare space. But I feel like it's a little bit too early for us to kind of nail down a sector because kind of like I said, there's so many different areas that we can apply this technology. And if we can extract the needs of the clients and apply the technology and give them value, we're kind of being greedy and don't want to leave too much money on the table and just trying to, and also these short-term projects kind of feed into the long term of like we will be able to learn about more of the needs and demands that we're having, clients are having. So that's kind of where we're at right now. But yeah, in terms of business, there's just so much demand, especially in Japan, where there's a lot of interest in AI and machine learning. It's kind of becoming a buzzword. So we have kind of, it's a double-edged sword where people might have a little bit of unrealistic expectations about what can be done. So we have to kind of find a good middle ground of this is what really can be done. You want the super AI robot that solves all your problems, but let's start with a small kind of predictive algorithm and then build it from there. Is kind of the story that we try to teach them. So I hope that answers your questions.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I guess one of the things, the world is bigger than the Silicon Valley, so I guess there are many opportunity out there, and then OMSC program will just link in a different location like we do. So that's
I guess I would wonder, if OMSCS students were specifically really looking for opportunity, would Tokyo, for example, be a good place for them to go for work? I mean, do you see that the OMSCS students that you've gotten to know kind of limit their scope of where they're looking for work, or do you see that they're truly looking globally for opportunities because maybe some might be elsewhere besides just in Silicon Valley?
So this is actually something that I noticed when I went to Tokyo. Tsuji-san set up the Tokyo meetup for me, and I was really surprised. The startup scene in Tokyo in terms of machine learning is really kind of starting to boom. Like there's a lot of startups around robotics and image search and things like that, and there's a lot of expats coming into Japan, working on these interesting technologies. So I feel like people are very mobile, and of course, if people are looking in Tokyo and interested in some of our projects, we're also hiring right now. So yeah, I think in terms of the OMSCS scene, there's so many opportunities out there and exciting times for machine learning. But Tsuji-san, did you want to add anything?
I think you pretty much covered it. Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm good. Yeah.
Well, it looks like we have another video chat question, so we're going to bring another student up to ask their question.
Hi, my name is Don Corkis. I'm in Denver. Hi, how are you?
Good.
I just wanted to basically ask, I'm new to the program. I'm just going to start.
A little bit frozen?
I'm sorry?
Yeah. While we wait for that to...
We can hear.
Oh, they can hear?
Okay. I'm new to the program, and I'm going to start in May. And basically, I wanted to ask kind of advice and a little bit about my background. I'm a physician. I work in Colorado, but sometimes work in Georgia. And I've always been interested in computers. I build computers, but I don't have any background in software at all, computer classes or software languages. I just build them because as a hobby, and I build them sometimes for businesses, servers, and for myself for photography. And now I've been writing to some IT companies here in Colorado, just explaining my situation. And I always tell them, and they could figure out my age. I'm 55 years old, and I'm kind of making a change into IT or medical IT. And one, I wanted to ask, what first class would you recommend me to take? I was thinking about intro to operating systems, but I'm not sure. I have no computer background. And then two, how to go about just finding out about IT jobs besides like Indeed and all the Google searches in, say, healthcare. I know it's a lot of information, but I'm very new and I'm just, I'm trying to make things happen.
Dan, I think it's a really exciting situation right now in terms of the job market for these kinds of skills, and congratulations to you to try to make the jump. I think looking back at my experience, a lot of my best colleagues were really self-taught in software. So you don't really have to worry about not having like a formal education around computer science, if that's what you're worried about. But in terms of the first class question, I think I'll take that first. OMSCS, they really push the for your first semester you should only take one course, and for me I think that worked out a lot. I took AI as a first course. That was pretty heavy in load. I was probably spending anywhere from maybe 15 to 20 hours per week on homework. But yeah, I would really recommend just taking one class. And people have different opinions. I kind of wanted to kind of dive into the deep end and see what one of the harder courses are like. But if that's your thing, AI, machine learning, computer vision, those are kind of really the time-consuming courses. And if you can live through those courses, then you can definitely tackle any other course in the program. If you want to kind of take it slow, you mentioned operating systems. I haven't taken that, but I hear really good things about it as kind of an introduction and warming up. From my experience, I would say things like maybe even software development process, SDP, might be a good course to take first. And in terms of finding out jobs about IT, really when I moved from Boston to Silicon Valley to find a job in tech, it was really just a matter of searching different company websites and just reaching out to a lot of different people. There are good resources. I would say look at Hacker News, and they might have some postings of like who's hiring. There's another site called We Work Remotely. It's weworkremotely.com. And the first one is Hacker News is you go to newsycombinator.com. You can Google it and it'll come up. Those sites are really where kind of all the tech geeks are at and talking about things. So those are pretty good sites to start with, I think.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and I'll also chime in on this. Since you're new to the program, you'll find that the longer you stay in the program, you'll make connections, and that will also be good for networking as far as jobs. So best of luck to you, and welcome to the community. We're really glad to have you. So we have a question.
Can I just one advice? Make sure you check on the course review website on the OMSCS. It has a lot of feedback in there. I guess we can share the link later. But one of the, I guess before I started joining the school, I didn't code for over 10 years. So I had a little bit of background on Java, and maybe a little bit of C, but that's all about it. So I was really scared starting up the school. So, but I reviewed it, look at the course review really a lot, and then try to understand what the path I should be taking. Because if you take one of those challenging classes at the first time, you get killed sometimes. So, um, and I didn't even know how to use GitHub and all the software tools as well. So I took SDP as the first class, and it worked out really well. So just I wanted to share experience.
I think we have a lot of people who come into the program who are freaking out a little bit just about, it's Georgia Tech and it's, a new thing for them and the combination of the difficulty of that. But there are so many resources to help you succeed, including your fellow students. So, yeah, that's great advice. So our next question is just a text question. They didn't want to come up on stage with us, but Macy wanted to know, how did you start building your initial client base, your company? So kind of jumping back to talking about startups and your work.
Taka, you want to cover that? Oh, you're muted.
I was muted, sorry. So initial client base, great question. It's really, I feel that this is one of those things that there's no real kind of shortcut. What I kind of did was, and my co-founder would speak a little bit better about this because she's more the business side of the company, and she gets all the contracts and things like that. But what I ended up doing was, one thing is to kind of try to build some recognition around your expertise. So I was flying back to Japan during summer breaks and talking about how voice assistants work, or giving like a seminar about how to do speech recognition on iOS and things like that. And people will kind of naturally come to those seminars and be asking more questions or want to know a little bit about those things. It's really good to have kind of an Excel spreadsheet, or even maybe like a MailChimp account where you can say, okay, you can just subscribe here, and I'll kind of send you updates about what's going on in terms of voice assistants in this world. The other thing, it's a little bit more hacky, but you can go to places like I mentioned, like Hacker News or Quora, even like Amazon reviews. If you kind of start looking at those places, you'll get a sense of like what people are actually looking for and the types of questions that people are asking around these areas. So those are really good avenues to kind of understand what the general market demand is, and build your talks and build your content around those areas, and kind of build up your audience from there. So yeah, that's kind of how we did it. But also there's a lot of networking. So if you're an OMSCS, that's a really good starting point for networking. I reached out to my alumni from Harvard Business School and things like that as well. Past work experiences, those are great places to reach out to find out if there's any projects that might be lying around there. So yeah, those are kind of the big areas.
Great. So we have another video question. So we're going to bring that person up in just a second. Oh no, well, we'll wait to see if they can. But anyways, let's see. So could we talk about a little bit, while we're waiting for that question to come back, in our last few minutes, what does your daily life look like? Is it different every day now that you have your own company and you work for a startup? How has it changed from what your life looked like when it was more corporate, if you will?
You want to take that one first, Tsuji?
Well, I work primarily on a project base, so pretty free in a way. So I do. Well, the things I have changed from the previous job to this new startup is that you take all the control by yourself. So you can do whatever you want during the day and then work at night, or however you design the work style is completely up to you. So I tend to work more on the nighttime because, well, the first thing is in the US. US is daytime, so it's easier to communicate. And also from the taking the OMSC program, then it just kind of became habit for me to work on the nighttime. So that's kind of hard. Design my own working style, but um, yeah. So as long as we hit the deadline, um, I just work anywhere I want and then however I want. I'm not sure if I answered that very well.
No, that's a great answer. So, if somebody is the type of person who loves to make their own schedule and really wants to set, their day how they want it, it could be a good place for them to be with a startup.
Right.
So,
Even like sometimes I really want to. Right.
yeah.
Sometimes I really want to focus on coding work. Sometimes I go outside of the house and then sort of taking not vacation, but go somewhere else and then use the Airbnb and then just focus on work only. Stuff like that.
So that's where you were getting your work done.
Yeah. Trust me, I'll get my work done.
I kind of feel similar. Like the biggest upside about running this kind of business is the flexibility and the freedom. So just as an example, today, I woke up, drop off the kids. So the other good thing is you have much more kind of flexibility for your family. And so after I drop off the kids, I did project work for maybe 2 or 3 hours. And then a new assignment came out for computer networks just today. So I spent about an hour on that. That's another piece of advice for those new to the program is try to spend like an hour on the projects just as they are announced. Because sometimes you can finish in an hour, sometimes it takes much longer, but just by spending that hour, you already have the project in your head. So you're actually thinking about it like all the time, like in the shower or during walks. So that's another piece of advice. But then after that, I actually went to watch the new Tomb Raider movie. So just like Tsuji-san, I kind of wanted to refresh. And there were only like 2 other people, very old, watching the movie. But that's the having that kind of freedom is a really great thing. And then I came back and started this interview. So that's my day-to-day looks like.
That's great. So we have another video chat question. So hopefully this one will be able to work. We're going to go ahead and bring them up here.
Hi, my name is Sagar, and first of all, it's great to be talking to you. So my question is for Taka. So you have a unique profile. You have experience working at Apple, an MBA from Harvard, and now the OMSCS. So I was wondering which of these helped you most in your ability to start a startup, and also like follow up on that question is I have a technical background and I recently started working as a software engineer. I have zero knowledge of anything related to business. So do you have any recommendation for certain things that we should know from the business side to be able to start a startup?
That's a great question. I think I'm not sure if you ask me like what's the most influential. I feel like I'm picking up different things from different areas of my experience. One thing I would say about an MBA is that a lot of my classmates, graduate to start a company, and that's if you're thinking about an MBA, that's the biggest thing that you can do after an MBA that will utilize all the things that you learn. For me, like it was a little bit weird because after I graduated from Harvard Business School, I became an individual contributor at Apple, just a regular software engineer. So all the things that I kind of learned during my MBA, like negotiations or corporate strategy or finance, kind of go out the window a little bit because those things are not really relevant at like an individual contributor level. But like once I started a company, all those things kind of start coming back about, you know, how to think about accounting, how to think about cash flows, how to think about competition and long-term planning and strategy and things like that. So definitely after starting my company, I'm picking out my MBA brain a lot more. But that being said, I feel like you know, the best entrepreneurs, if you think about people like Mark Zuckerberg or Steve Jobs, you know, they don't have formal education in business. But I think one thing in common they have is they're really curious about all different things. So, you know, one thing I would recommend is like if you're curious about business and how business works, just start Googling about everything that you're curious about. Like, how does accounting work? You know, what are balance sheets? How do you start a business? How do you raise money? If you start Googling about those things, there's a lot of really good information on the internet. And that's one way to learn. And the other thing is, you know, just to kind of jump in and start your company. I think there's no better teacher than experience if you really want to jump into your own business. So those things are what I would recommend.
All right. Well, I think we've run out of time. Unfortunately, we're having all these questions roll in all of a sudden at the end here. But what I will tell the audience is, typically in the past I've shared a way to contact, but this time I'm going to send a follow-up email. So if you participated, we have your email address. I'll send a follow-up email with contact information. If you have more questions, want to ask Taka or Tsuji a follow-up question, or find a way to connect. And I'll also provide the information their company, Palo Alto Insight, is hiring. You can see the little link here in gold on the screen. I'll also provide the link. Yeah, go ahead and plug the company that they're hiring and looking for awesome OMSCS students maybe. So thank you so much to both of you for doing this and sharing all of your, you know, your experience. It's been really great. And Tsuji, thank you for getting up early and conversing in from Japan.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and Taka, good luck with finishing the program. And hopefully we'll see you at graduation soon. And
yeah, I'm shooting for fall.
Yeah, yes. And thanks to the audience for coming. And like I said, don't hesitate to follow up if you have questions. And hopefully we'll see you at our next seminar. Thanks so much, and I hope everyone has a great night.